There's a weight that some of you are carrying right now, and I don't even have to know your name to know it. It's a weight that bends your back, dulls your vision, and whispers in your ear when you're alone. It's the weight of your past, the things you've done, the mistakes you've made, the moments you wish you could go back and rewrite. And if you let it, that weight will bury you alive. But let's stop for a moment and really think about this. Ask yourself, who told you that your past gets to define your future? Who decided that what you've done, where you've fallen short, somehow carves the boundaries of who you can become? There's an assumption buried in that belief, and it's a dangerous one. It's the idea that you are nothing more than the sum of your worst moments. But you are not. You are not a photograph frozen in time, a mere snapshot of your worst day. You are a story still being written, still unfolding, still subject to the remarkable and often terrifying process of transformation. And transformation requires a radical shift in how you see yourself. Consider this. If you view yourself as irredeemable, as permanently broken, you will act accordingly. You will lower your shoulders, avert your gaze, and shrink yourself into a life that matches the narrative you've accepted. And the tragedy in that is immense because it's self-inflicted. You will live in a prison of your own design, locked inside a version of yourself that no longer has to exist. But let's talk about something even deeper, because it's one thing to say your past doesn't define you, but it's another thing entirely to understand why. And the reason is not just because you can change, though you can, but because the very nature of life is that it demands change. The person you were 5 years ago, the person who made those mistakes, who acted out of fear or ignorance or desperation, that person is not here anymore. You are here. And if you are here, you have the capacity to be different. That doesn't mean you deny your past or pretend it never happened. No, it means you extract wisdom from it. You take every lesson, every scar, every ounce of suffering, and you make it mean something. Because if you refuse to do that, if you carry your past like a cross that you must bear forever, then you will suffocate under the weight of something that was only ever meant to be a stepping stone. The question isn't whether or not you've failed. The question is, are you willing to stand up anyway? And this is where things get difficult, because standing up means confrontation. It means looking at yourself honestly, without illusion, without self-pity, and asking, what am I still carrying that is keeping me from moving forward? What outdated belief, what shame, what guilt? Because I guarantee you, something is holding you back, and you have to name it before you can remove it. You know what happens when you refuse to confront yourself? You stagnate. And there is nothing more painful than stagnation, because life is movement. And if you are not growing, you are decaying. Some of you are afraid to let go of your past because it's familiar. You've wrapped yourself in the identity of the broken, the unworthy, the one who messed up too many times. But I'm telling you right now, that identity is a lie. You are not your failures. You are what you do next. And doing something different, choosing to rise, does not mean you will never fail again. You will. You will make mistakes. You will stumble. But that's not the point. The point is that every time you do, you will be stronger, wiser, more capable of navigating this incredibly complex, brutal, and beautiful existence. You don't get to rewrite the past, but you do get to decide how it shapes you. You can let it be the anchor that drowns you, or you can let it be the foundation upon which you build something extraordinary. But hear me on this. If you do not make this decision consciously, life will make it for you. And life is not kind to those who refuse to take responsibility for their own transformation. So today, right now, you have a choice. You can cling to your past, clutch it like a worn-out excuse, or you can set it down, acknowledge it, learn from it, and then move forward with the full knowledge that your future is still unwritten, that you are still capable of greatness no matter how many times you have fallen. Because the only thing standing between you and the life you are meant to live is the belief that you are not worthy of it. And that belief, it's a lie. So stand up, lift your head, step forward, because your past does not define you. What you choose to do now, that's what defines you. Now go. Do something with it. There's something you need to hear, and you need to hear it now. You are enough. Not someday. Not when you get everything together. Not when you've fixed every flaw, silenced every doubt, and erased every mistake. Right now, in this moment, as you are. But I can already hear the resistance in your mind. That little voice that says, no, I'm not. The one that has spent years compiling a list of every reason why you fall short, why you don't deserve to stand tall, why you should wait just a little longer before you truly start living. But waiting has a cost, and the cost is your life. Because every time you tell yourself you're not ready, you push your existence further and further away from what it could be. Every time you say, I'll be worthy when, you strip yourself of the power to act in the present. And if you keep doing that, you'll wake up one day and realize you've spent years, decades even, sitting on the sidelines of your own story. So let's address this head on. Let's really confront the belief that says you are not enough as you are. Where did that come from? Who planted that seed in you? Maybe it was the world, ruthless, unrelenting in its expectations, constantly shifting the bar so that no matter how much you achieve, it never quite feels like enough. Maybe it was someone you trusted, someone who should have spoken life into you, but instead made you feel like you had to earn love, like you had to be perfect to be seen. Or maybe it was you. Maybe you have spent so long comparing yourself to an unattainable ideal that you have become your own worst enemy. But let's be clear, this belief is not reality. It's a construction, and it's a destructive one because it keeps you in a perpetual state of almost ready, almost good enough, almost the person you want to be. But almost is a lie. The truth is, the only thing stopping you from stepping into your life fully is the belief that you can't. And let's not mistake this for arrogance. This isn't about pretending you have everything figured out. It's not about ignoring the parts of yourself that need growth. It's about understanding that you do not have to be flawless to be valuable. You do not have to be perfect to take up space, to pursue something meaningful, to live a life that matters. You have to start where you are. Because if you don't, you'll never start at all. Think about it like this. Imagine a child learning to walk. They stumble, they fall, they get up again. But never once do they stop and say, I'll try again when I'm better at this. No, they just keep going. And that's what you need to do. You need to keep going, not when you feel more qualified, not when you think you're finally worthy, but now. Because the truth is, you become by doing. You don't wait until you're confident to take action. You take action. And confidence follows. You don't wait until you're strong to face your struggles. You face them. And that's what makes you strong. And if you keep waiting, if you keep standing still because you think you aren't ready, you are actively denying yourself the very process that will make you into the person you want to be. And let's talk about the fear underneath it all. Because that's what this really is, isn't it? Fear that if you step forward, you'll fail. Fear that if you let yourself be seen, you'll be judged. Fear that if you really try and it's still not enough, then what? But listen to me carefully. The only true failure is refusing to try at all. The only real tragedy is a life unlived because fear was given more power than potential. And let's take it even further. What if I told you that even the version of you right now, the one you see as incomplete, as unworthy, has something to offer? What if I told you that the wisdom, the resilience, the insight you've already gained is needed somewhere by someone right now? Because while you're busy telling yourself you're not ready, there are people out there who could be impacted by the imperfect, evolving, real version of you. But if you keep waiting, if you keep shrinking, you'll never get to see the lives you could touch, the differences you could make. So I'll ask you this. How much longer are you going to let doubt run your life? How much longer are you going to stand in the way of your own growth? Because the moment you decide, really decide, that you are enough as you are, you start to move differently. You stop apologizing for existing. You stop dimming yourself to make others comfortable. You stop waiting for permission to take up space in this world. And if you do that, if you choose to believe in yourself, not because you have all the answers, but because you are willing to find them, you will see a shift in your life that you never thought possible. Because you were never meant to stay small. You were never meant to live in hesitation, in self-doubt, in constant deferral of your own potential. You were meant to grow. You were meant to evolve. But most of all, you were meant to begin. And you begin now. You know, it's a strange thing how we repeat the same patterns over and over again, even when we know they're destroying us. It's almost like we're trapped in a loop, a cycle so deeply ingrained in us that we mistake it for reality. And some of you are living inside a cycle that isn't serving you. A cycle that keeps you small, keeps you broken, keeps you tethered to a version of yourself that you have long since outgrown. But here's what you need to hear. Just because you were born into something, just because you were taught something, just because you have lived something, does not mean you have to carry it for the rest of your life. There are generational patterns, family dysfunctions, and personal habits that have woven themselves so tightly into your identity that you think they're part of you. But they're not. They're learned. They're inherited. They're passed down through words, behaviors, fears, sometimes so quietly that you don't even realize you've absorbed them until one day you wake up and see that you've been living a life that isn't yours. That your choices, your limitations, your fears, they were handed to you before you even had the chance to decide who you wanted to be. And I'm telling you right now, if you do not consciously break free from what no longer serves you, you will pass it on. You will pass it to your children. You will pass it to the people who look up to you. You will pass it to every version of yourself that could have existed if only you had been brave enough to walk away. And let's not pretend this is easy. Let's not act like breaking a cycle is as simple as deciding to be different. No, breaking a cycle requires a kind of courage that most people will never understand. It requires standing up and saying, I will not live like this anymore. It requires looking at yourself honestly, dissecting the way you think, the way you react, the way you move through the world, and asking, is this really mine or was it given to me? Because you cannot change something you refuse to acknowledge. And here's where it gets difficult. Because once you acknowledge the cycle, once you see it for what it is, you have a responsibility. You can no longer blame your past, your parents, your circumstances, or your trauma. Because now you know, and once you know, you have to choose to either repeat the pattern or break it. And breaking it, that's war. That's going against everything that has been wired into you. That's waking up every day and choosing to do the opposite of what feels familiar. And familiarity is seductive. It doesn't matter if it's painful, if it's all you've ever known, there will be a part of you that clings to it. And that's why some of you are still stuck. Because as much as you say you want change, you're still holding on to the comfort of what's known. You're still afraid of what happens when you step outside the script you were given. And that fear, it's real, it's valid, but it cannot be an excuse. Because if you let it, that fear will build you a prison and you will spend your life decorating the walls instead of walking out the door. Think about it. What would happen if you truly let go? If you stopped answering to the version of yourself that was shaped by pain, by rejection, by trauma? Who would you be if you weren't trying to survive something that's already over? Because that's what so many of you are doing. You are living as if you are still fighting battles that ended years ago. You are making decisions based on wounds that have already healed. You are staying in cycles that are only repeating because you keep spinning them. So how do you stop? How do you actually break the cycle? You start by making choices that contradict the pattern. If you were raised in chaos, you choose peace. If you were taught that love is conditional, you love unconditionally. If you have always been the person who stays silent, you find your voice. And it will feel unnatural at first. It will feel like wearing clothes that don't fit. But the more you do it, the more you build a new foundation, and eventually that foundation becomes stronger than the one you were born into. And let's be clear, this is not about blaming the past. This is not about bitterness. This is about freedom, because bitterness keeps you tied to what hurt you. Blame keeps you focused on what was done to you instead of what you can do about it. But freedom is when you take what was meant to break you and use it to build something greater. Freedom is when you take the pieces of your past and turn them into a roadmap for your future. Freedom is when you say, this ends with me. And when you do that, when you refuse to pass on what was given to you, when you decide that your story will not be a repetition of the one before you, something extraordinary happens. You don't just change your life. You change the lives of everyone who comes after you. You become the reason someone else believes they can be different. You become the proof that transformation is possible. And that is power. So if you're waiting for permission to break free, to step outside the lines, to be the one who changes the story, you don't need it. You were never meant to live a life dictated by someone else's choices. You were meant to write your own. So go, choose something different, choose something better. And when you do, don't look back. There's something you need to understand. You need to understand it deeply. You are responsible for your own life. No one is coming to save you. No one is going to hand you the blueprint to your purpose, to your healing, to your success. And for some of you, that thought is terrifying because it means there is no one else to blame when things go wrong. But for others, for those who are ready to hear it, it is liberating. Because if no one else is responsible for building your life, that means you have the power to create it exactly as you want it to be. But that kind of responsibility, it's heavy. And that's why so many people run from it. They stay stuck in patterns of avoidance, of blame, of waiting for the right moment, the right circumstances, the right person to fix what's broken inside them. But waiting is just another way of saying you're afraid. Waiting is just another way of handing your life over to chance, to fate, to external forces that do not have your best interest in mind. You cannot afford to do that. Because if you refuse to take responsibility for your own life, someone else will, and they will shape it in ways that serve them, not you. And that's what most people don't realize. They think avoiding responsibility gives them freedom, but it does the opposite. It makes you a puppet to the world around you. It makes you reactive instead of proactive. It makes you live in a state of perpetual dependency, waiting for someone or something to come along and grant you permission to be who you were meant to be. But no one is coming. No one is going to give you the perfect opportunity. No one is going to make you change. That has to come from you. And it starts with a brutal, unflinching look at where you are. Are you where you want to be? Are you proud of the way you show up in your life? Are you living with integrity, with discipline, with purpose? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself, what are you going to do about it? Because it's easy to complain. It's easy to point fingers, to say, well, if I had a better childhood, if I had more money, if I had more support, if things were different, then I would be better. But that mindset will keep you stuck forever. Because you cannot change where you started, but you can change where you're going. And let's not pretend this is easy. Responsibility is hard. It means acknowledging that your habits, your mindset, your discipline, or lack of it are shaping your future. It means accepting that no matter how unfair life has been to you, it is still your job to build something meaningful out of it. And some people never make that choice. Some people spend their entire lives waiting for someone else to make it for them, but not you, not anymore. Because there comes a moment when you have to decide, am I going to be a victim of my circumstances, or am I going to take control? Am I going to spend my life complaining about what happened to me, or am I going to rise in spite of it? And that choice, it's made in the small moments. It's made in the way you speak to yourself when no one is listening. It's made in whether or not you get up and do the hard things when no one is watching. It's made in the way you carry yourself, in the way you refuse to be defined by anything outside of your own determination. And let's talk about the people who will try to stop you, because they will come. When you take responsibility for your life, when you start making decisions that break you out of the patterns that kept you small, people will resist. Some of them will be people you love. Some of them will be people who benefit from your complacency. Some of them will be people who are too afraid to take responsibility for their own lives, so they don't want to see you doing it either. But you cannot live for them. You cannot shape your life around their expectations, their fears, their limitations, because at the end of the day, when you are alone with yourself, you are the one who has to live with the consequences of your choices. No one else. So what are you going to do with that? Are you going to keep waiting for permission to take your life seriously? Are you going to keep blaming everything and everyone for why you aren't where you want to be? Or are you going to take responsibility? Because responsibility is the foundation of greatness. Responsibility is what turns suffering into strength, what turns pain into power, what turns a life of mediocrity into a life of purpose. And that's what you need to understand. There is no magic formula, no secret shortcut. It's responsibility. That's the key. Building. And when you do that, when you really do that, you become unstoppable. Because a person who has taken full responsibility for their life is a person who cannot be controlled, cannot be manipulated, cannot be swayed by external circumstances, because they know that no matter what happens, no matter what life throws at them, they will find a way forward. Because they have to, because no one else is going to do it for them. So the question is simple. Are you going to take responsibility for your life, or are you going to keep waiting? Because waiting is a slow death. But responsibility, that's the beginning of something extraordinary. And the choice is yours. There's something profound about the way we seek meaning. It's not just a luxury, it's a necessity. You need meaning in your life the same way you need air in your lungs. And yet so many people go through life completely disconnected from it. They wake up, they go through the motions, they chase distractions, but at the end of the day, they're empty, they're lost, and they wonder why nothing ever seems to feel right. But here's the truth. If you do not create meaning for yourself, life will feel unbearable. If you do not choose a path worth walking, the weight of existence will crush you. People are desperate for meaning, and yet they settle for substitutes, cheap imitations of purpose that never truly fulfill them. They chase pleasure, thinking it will bring them happiness. They chase approval, thinking it will bring them validation. They chase comfort, thinking it will bring them peace. And yet none of it lasts. Because those things are distractions, not destinations. They give you momentary relief, but they do not anchor you, they do not sustain you. And if you are not anchored in something deeper, if you do not have a purpose that demands something from you, then life will feel like a series of meaningless events, strung together by nothing but your own fleeting desires. And this is why people fall into despair. It's not because life is too hard, it's because they don't have a reason to endure its hardships. It's not because they lack opportunity, it's because they lack the will to pursue something meaningful. Because meaning requires sacrifice. Meaning requires effort. Meaning requires that you willingly pick up a burden, carry it, and keep moving forward even when it would be easier to drop it. And that's why so many people never find it, because they don't want to struggle. But let me tell you something. If you do not struggle for something, you will suffer from everything. So what does it mean to pursue meaning? It means you take on responsibility, not just for yourself, but for something greater than yourself. It means you align your actions with something that matters, something that gives you a reason to wake up in the morning and fight through the inevitable difficulties of life. And here's the paradox. You don't find meaning by searching for it directly. You don't just wake up one day and discover it sitting there waiting for you. You create it. You build it. You shape it through the way you choose to live, through the sacrifices you are willing to make, through the burdens you are willing to carry. And this is where people get it wrong. They think meaning is supposed to come easily, that they're supposed to just feel it. But meaning isn't about feelings. It's about commitment. It's about deciding that you will devote yourself to something, even when it's difficult, even when it's inconvenient, even when you don't feel like it. Because the things that bring true meaning to your life, whether it's your family, your work, your community, your personal growth, those things require effort. They require discipline. They require a kind of devotion that most people are unwilling to give. And that's why most people don't live meaningful lives, because they want the reward without the sacrifice. And let's be clear, pursuing meaning does not mean avoiding pain. In fact, it often means choosing the harder path. It means willingly stepping into discomfort, willingly embracing struggle, willingly taking on a challenge that most people would run from. But that's precisely what makes it meaningful. Because if something is easy, if something requires nothing from you, if something does not stretch you, then it cannot change you. And if it cannot change you, then it cannot give you meaning. This is why you must be careful about what you devote your life to, because you will suffer. No matter what you choose, that is the reality of life. So the question isn't, how do I avoid suffering? The question is, what am I willing to suffer for? What is so important to you, so deeply aligned with your purpose, that you would endure hardship for it without hesitation? Because that is where you will find meaning. And this isn't something you can outsource. No one else can give you meaning. No one else can tell you what your purpose is. You have to decide that for yourself. You have to examine your life, your values, your strengths, and ask, what am I willing to give my life to? Because make no mistake, your life will be given to something. The question is, will it be something trivial, something fleeting, something that leaves you empty in the end? Or will it be something that matters, something that leaves the world better than you found it, something that when you look back on your life, makes you proud of the person you became? And here's what you need to know. When you commit to a meaningful path, everything changes. Your perspective shifts, your energy shifts. The things that used to tempt you, the distractions that used to consume your time, the self-doubt that used to hold you back, those things start to lose their power over you. Because when you have a purpose, when you have a reason to keep moving forward, nothing can stop you. Obstacles become challenges to overcome, not excuses to quit. Failure becomes a lesson, not a defeat. And your life, your entire life, becomes a reflection of something greater than just your own comfort. But here's the truth. Most people won't do this. Most people will continue to chase distractions, continue to seek comfort over growth, continue to avoid the responsibility that comes with true meaning. But you